Fina.
Welcome, everybody. This is Abe Bonowitz with Death Penalty Action, and on the ground in Jackson, Mississippi, in front of the State Supreme Court building for Mississippi, is Mitzi Magleby and Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood. They'll identify themselves. Death Penalty Action is pleased to provide this opportunity to live stream in. And we're grateful to all of the media that are there in person and also the four of you that are online at this time. We are recording this. I'll be able to send a link out. And of course, everybody has permission to record and or broadcast the following presentation. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood. And here you go. Go ahead, Jeff.
So on the, just to explain everything, Abe Bonowitz, who is the executive director of Death Penalty Action, he is moderating the virtual component of this. I've got a number of people on Zoom with him. Abe Bonowitz, Abraham Bonowitz, Abraham Bonowitz. Abraham Bonowitz. And my name is Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood, REVDRJEFFHOOD, and this is Mitzi Magleby, correct?
Correct.
I want to make sure I said it right. Hold on, here we go. MITZIMAGLEBY.
Amazing. Yes.
Perfect. And I also want to introduce behind me my son, Quinley Hood. And Quinley is QUINLEYHOOD. And then Madeline Hood, MADELEINEHOOD. And, you know, it's certainly a pleasure for us to, well, hell, I better not say pleasure, because it really ain't no pleasure to be out here. But perhaps it's a pleasure to be with you wonderful people. To be out here with the kids and you know, letting them see, I guess, how government works. But you know, we're out here because in this building, we keep on seeing processes that want to kill people. We out here because the state of Mississippi keeps on wanting to kill people. We got Stand Down Mississippi on this sign. And the reason we're asking for folks to stand down is because the state keeps on killing people. I'm going to let Mitzi go momentarily, but let me tell you a little bit about Mitzi real quick. This woman right here has got to be one of the most incredible criminal justice advocates in the entire state of Mississippi. Every day from dawn until dusk, she is on the phone with various people here in the state, championing their rights as prisoners. She's on the phone with various prison officials, and she has relationships with, dare I say, dozens of folks on death row. And so I wanted Mitzi to get the opportunity to sort of speak to this moment. We're a month out from Richard Jordan's potential execution, and I wanted Mitzi to have an opportunity to just speak to where we're at.
Richard Jordan. Richard Jordan. I think we need to know the man before we're quick to judge. Did he make a mistake? Yes. Did he make a bad mistake? Yes. Is he a poster child for rehabilitation? Also, yes. He has worked his entire 40 some odd years.
Almost 50
years in prison. At one time, he was let off of death row, and he was a trusted inmate that was able to go out and work and drive tractors and do the things that needed to be done on Parchment Farm. He then got put back on death row, and he does nothing. One of the inmates on death row told me, Richard Jordan is only a danger to himself because he works so hard. That's all he does. He gets up, he works, he has a happy face, He's married to a wonderful woman named Marcia. And we know, we don't believe, we know his life is worth saving. There is redemption there. He redeemed. He's a good man. He has changed. And he has changed for the better. We need to spare his life.
Mitzi, thank you. Set this down.
Mitzi, what's your last name again? Magleby. Magleby. Leby.
You know, I have been with 9 different people in the execution chamber as the state takes their lives. On 9 different occasions, I have seen the state extinguish life. It seems to me that the Attorney General, the Supreme Court, spends a lot of time talking about how we need to speed the process up. We need to get the numbers down on death row. They have never had to witness one of these executions. They've never had to sit there and hold the hand of someone whose life is being snuffed out in front of them. Tate Reeves, Governor, Attorney General, Mississippi Supreme Court justices, quit talking a big game. Quit talking about how much you love executions, how much you love the death penalty. Get your hands dirty. If you really believe, get your hands dirty. But they don't believe. They do not believe. What they believe in is politics. They believe that this is acceptable to the majority of Mississippians. And I am under a firm belief that if most folks in Mississippi had to experience what I've experienced, there would be no death penalty. We've got juries and judges giving death sentences. And then we don't see, I mean, in the case of Richard Jordan, we're talking about 50 years. 50 years. Can you imagine if jurors in this state, if they handed down a death sentence, they had to carry it out themselves? Can you imagine if judges who handed down death sentences had to carry it out themselves? There would be no death penalty. There would be no death penalty. There's an old phrase back during the war in Vietnam called a chicken hawk. Those who were in the United States Senate who had no problem sending everybody else's kids to die in the war in Vietnam. But they weren't willing to send their own kids. I think we got a lot of chicken hawks here in Mississippi. I also wanted to speak quickly to spirituality. We got a lot of people talking about Jesus. We got a lot of people talking about their faith and wanting to wave the Bible everywhere, here and fro, here and fro. And then kill people at the same time. Jesus, at the only execution that Jesus ever attended beside his own, in John chapter 8, he's there with the adulterous woman. She's thrown on the ground in front of the judicial authorities. She's guilty as charged. Jesus gets down in the dirt with the woman. And what does he say? You who are without sin, cast the first stone. So I want to speak to the executioners at Parchman. I want to speak to the Attorney General, the Governor. You who are without sin, cast the first stone. You who are without sin, cast the first stone. Lastly, I wanted to speak to Richard Jordan. How in the hell is anybody going to think that somebody who is almost 80 years old is a threat to society? It's insane. Somebody that's been down there for 50 Years. It's insane. Of course, we've got a crime. All the crimes are horrible. They're all horrible. Of course, we got some innocent folks. That needs to be said. But for the most part, these situations, these crimes are horrible. But my God, isn't it just as horrible to strap somebody down to a table, helpless, and kill them, defenseless? The question is not what Richard Jordan did. The question is, what are we going to do? Who are we going to be? I like to believe that we want to be better. I like to believe that we want to live up to our best values. I like to believe that a lot of these folks who have crosses and fishes on their car, that means more than just what your friends think about you when you drive by. I'll conclude with saying that Mississippi has a long tradition, like a lot of other southern states, of backwardness. My home state of Arkansas has a long tradition of backwardness. Lived in Mississippi for a little while, Alabama, Georgia. And I wanted to just ask all of us, when do we want to be known for life? When do we want to be known for championing life as opposed to championing death? I'm disgusted that we're even at this moment. Truly disgusted.
And not to mention, not to forget, Richard Jordan is a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah,
Wait, twice.
Wow. I mean, so think about that. The politicians are sending Richard Jordan to fight the war, and then when he gets back and struggles to function, they don't want to have anything to do with him. They want to kill him. It's crazy to me. You know, this is the New Testament. I don't know if a lot of these folks know anything about the New Testament, but you're supposed to love your neighbor as you love yourself. You ain't supposed to kill your neighbor. You can't love your neighbor and kill him at the same time. I think that it's important, and so important, to realize that these folks on death row are human beings. And we can't be human if we continue to have a fixation on snuffing them out. Y'all got anything you want to say? So I think we want people to know that this is not necessary. Stand down, Mississippi. Stand down in the name of Jesus, in the name of Christ, in the name of God. Stand down. Nobody else has to die. Y'all got any questions? We got anybody online have any questions?
I've invited folks to put their questions in the chat or to raise their hand so I can allow them to speak.
I know you got some questions.
You can also follow up with us individually once this closes.
I'm gonna bring it.
So Mitzi, we don't appear to have any questions at this time.
Let's move it out of your camera.
Okay. Hey, Mitzi, come on back.
Okay.
Hey, you said nobody had any questions there?
I know I've also invited people to contact you or us directly. So currently among the journalists, there are no questions.
Yeah, there's a few questions here. Okay.
Please, Jeff, please be sure to repeat the question. Jeff, stand back. Jeff, repeat the question and stand back a step.
I want that noted. And I am honored
embarrassing.
and blessed to be in his presence.
That's my friend. All right. Hit me with the, let me hold the mic.
No, I got you.
All right.
Jeff, take a step back. Take a step back. There you go. That's good.
Okay.
My question will be short. Brief.
I'm 41 years old.
We spoke to a young man today. Oh, I just spell that first and last name for me.
It's Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood, REVDRJFFHO.
All right. Sum this all up for me in less than 20 seconds.
I mean, I can sum it up to you in 2 seconds. Stand down, Mississippi. Don't kill nobody. I mean, quit killing folks. Certainly, the murders gotta stop. How can you teach people not to kill people by killing? How can you teach people not to kill people by killing people? I mean, the death penalty, and I'm blowing past you 20 seconds, but the death penalty is incestuous violence. We are teaching our young people that you murder your problem instead of trying to solve your problem and work through your problem. That if somebody gives you trouble, you kill them. You don't work with them. You don't try to make things better. You just kill them. And I don't think that's the message that most Mississippians want to transmit or bequeath to the next generation.
And my last question, you said you sat through 9 of these executions. Can you just, I know it's kids around, but can you just talk about what that looks like?
They've heard more than most folks. Yeah, they hear this. Yeah, I mean, I think what we're talking about is depends on the execution. Probably the most horrific execution by far that I have ever seen was the execution of Kenny Smith, which was the first nitrogen execution in the United States in history. The execution consisted of, and Mississippi just passed nitrogen, although has yet to carry one out. But what it looked like was they put a mask from the top of Kenny's forehead to right under his chin, like a firefighter's mask with a glass faceplate. And it was connected to another room. They turned the nitrogen on. As soon as the gas hit his face, he started heaving back and forth violently. All of his veins popped up. It looked like there were a million ants underneath his skin going in every single direction. He was thrusting on the gurney. The gurney started to sway back and forth. The thing is bolted to the floor. It's not supposed to move at all. I began to cry. I'm not a super emotional crier kind of guy, but it was by far the most horrific thing that I've ever seen. And the guards who were in the chamber began to sort of start moving towards the door. So I was a little frightened that nitrogen had leaked and that it was going to kill all of us. Behind me, I heard from one of the rooms, "Please stop. And I mean, it was horrible. It was absolutely horror. It was a horror show. And Mississippi asked this without ever hearing from anybody who witnessed that nitrogen execution or anybody who's ever witnessed a nitrogen execution. And so again, we're talking about politicians, talking about an attorney general, we're talking about a governor that is so zealous to kill that they have no concern, not just for the pain and suffering of the person being executed, but they don't have any concept of how to protect the people in the room, their own corrections officers. Nitrogen is a very dangerous form of execution that literally, if leaked, could kill everyone in the room. But that shows that it's not just that the governor, the attorney general, it's not just politicians, it's not just that they don't care about the condemned, they don't care about these folks who work for the Department of Corrections. They don't care about any of us. Just more executions. I'll say this, as far as the lethal injection is concerned, being there with someone before the poison starts to flow, in most situations, you can see the poison going through the line. And so you know what's coming. you can see the breathing start to get more labored. You can see people struggling. These folks who've been executed struggling. And I've never heard any of these guys say, I'm really glad for all that I've done. And, you know, I hate everybody. I'm a monster. It's always love, forgiveness, hope, mercy. I mean, they end their lives in the same way that we all end our lives, hoping for something better.
Can you just spell the first and last name for me? I know you did.
It's all good. Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood, REVDRJEFFHOD. Thank you.
Jeff, we have a question here.
Man, I knew you were from Mississippi.
Yeah.
Jeff, we have a question.
Speaking of, oh,
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
hey, hold on 1 second. I got one more here.
okay, so I know you were talking about, the people in the room and things like that. What about like the victim's family? Have you guys talked to any of them and
Oh,
how they
sure.
feel, or his wife and how she feels?
Sure.
And what sorts of things that, you've heard from them?
Sure.
Because this has been a long time that, like, Miss Marder's sons were little when she was killed. And,
Now they're in their 50s.
they're in their 50s
Yeah.
now. And, this has been hanging over their head for a long time. I mean, has anybody talked to them?
Sure. I'll answer that question in two ways.
Okay.
One is a broader answer in that, I think that we always try to do our best to have those types of relationships and to show grace and mercy and compassion. For me, those relationships have looked different with each execution. I mean, sometimes, I become very close to the victim's family. For instance, when Scott Eisenberg was executed in Oklahoma at the beginning of 2023, his victim's granddaughter has become a very good friend of mine. We've been on panels together, and one of the things that she said was, we waited so long for the state to kill this person. And now after it happened, I don't feel any different. I don't feel like I got what the state said I was going to get, the closure that I was told that I was going to get. And I will say there's also the other piece is that there are people who are very angry and they hate me as much as they hate, the condemned. And I think part of what I have to do is just be generous with where people are. I'll say this and I'll let Mitzi jump in. I think that 50 years, that's torture for any family that's been through this. And I think if there's anything that speaks to the need to abolish the death penalty, it's the fact that families are being put through every appeal, every news story. I mean, it would seem to me that most families would prefer to just put somebody away and never have to think about them again. I'm going to go ahead and speak to Marcia and the victim's family.
Of course, the victim's family, we bottom of our heart sympathy to them. It has been 50 years. And I agree with Dr. Hood that 50 years of torturing the family through all this process is too much. And he's right. When you give somebody life without parole, they're there. That's it. And I do wish closure for them, but not in a way that murders another person. I don't believe we have to murder to atone a murder. I don't. I just don't.
Yeah, I think that's good. I was also going to say that, I just can't imagine every Christmas, every New Year thinking, is this going to be the year that they finally execute him? And then it doesn't happen. Then 10 years go by. Is this going to be the year that they finally execute him? I mean, I think that if someone, this is the priest speaking, but I think if someone is encouraged to hold on to anger and vengeance for 50 years, which is what the laws of Mississippi are encouraging, I think that we're doing nothing but making our society more unhealthy than this foolishness of saying these executions make us better or healthier.
I had a follow-up question to that. So are you advocating, either one of y'all could answer this, you said an 80-year-old man is not how he is dangerous to society. Are you advocating for the release, Or are you just saying, don't kill him and let him sit on death, or I guess life in prison?
Well, I mean, the thing that, go ahead.
I'm advocating to do the right thing. I'm advocating to let him live. If it is in prison for the rest of his days, so be it. I'm advocating for him not to die. He doesn't need to die. I don't see that that's a solution to any problem.
Yeah, I think I would just add to that is that this idea of future dangerousness is part of, you know, the calculation of whether someone receives a death sentence. And I think when you look at an 80-year-old man, it's hard to say that there's a future, any sort of future dangerousness that remains.
It's also unconstitutional.
Right, right. I think the other thing that I was thinking about is, you know, I mean, this is not a conversation about life without parole, how many years somebody should get, or any of those things. I mean, we are very much standing out here to say, what is killing him going to do for our society?
Absolutely.
And it's
Not a thing.
you know, I think that sometimes the danger of sometimes the death penalty conversation is there's a hyper focus on either the perpetrator or the victim. Certainly, it's important to have such things in mind, but I think even more than that, we need to think about us. What does this do to us as a society? What does this do for us as a society? I love this phrasing that has been said over and over again. The question, of course, is not whether Richard Jordan deserves to die. The question is, who is righteous enough to kill him? And I think that that's the very premise of the book of John. You who are without sin, cast the first stone. Hey, dude, the question from there?
Yes, thank you very much. This is from Mina Korpuz. I think I'm saying that. I hope I'm saying that right. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
It says from Mina Korpuz with Mississippi Today. And let's make sure I have that right. Yes, Mississippi Today. And she says, can either of you please speak about what some of these death row inmates feel about having to face an execution one day, whether or not a date has been scheduled?
What does Mina wanted to speak to? What do these guys go through on a daily basis, knowing that an execution is looming, a date is looming, a date is possible?
I talk to people on death row, and them knowing that there's an execution looming is extremely hard on these men. They try to keep their face together, I guess you could say. They try to go on about their day. But Mississippi is moving them from Unit 29 to Unit 17, where the executions will take place. A lot of them have spoken to me about being housed where they'll die. It's extremely depressing for them, and it plays on their mental health. And it's incredibly sad, but they try their best to keep their spirits up and to keep the spirit of the person who has to date their spirit up.
I mean, I think that I can speak to this on a variety of death rows. I mean, obviously, it's you know, when you give someone a death sentence, you would think that they're going to live their days worried about the death sentence. Well, I mean, hell, if you think you're going to get 50 years out of it, what? I mean, let's say you're 40 years old when it happens and you're going to get 50 years out of it. What's there to think about? I mean, I think it's absurd that people think, oh, he's got a death sentence weighing over his head, and for 50 years he's going to be worried and all. I mean, I just don't think that's reality. And I think that what we're talking about is, I think we're talking about a situation in which what we assume the death penalty is and what the death penalty actually is often very far apart. Now, on the other hand, there is also this element of, in a lot of states, the death chamber is very close to death row. Tennessee is like that. Alabama is close. What Mitzi was talking about. And so there is this sort of, I guess, ghost, if you will, that seems to haunt the folks who are there. And I think for some people that probably, they like that maybe. I think, but I also think, again, you're talking about a system that is so broken that, 50 years?
He's paid.
I think there's a variety of ways of looking at it, and I realize I'm sort of talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I think that, there's, again, different ways of looking at it.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Okay, so death penalty advocates say the death penalty is a deterrent to crime.
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
I mean, I think if, somebody came out here and wanted to shoot all of us, let's say they want to get me, they said, I hate that Jeff Hood. I hate his guts. Or perhaps they hate the Clarion Ledger. All of the Jackson Free Press, they're not thinking, I might get the death penalty. That's absurd. I mean, nobody is thinking, oh, well, I want to go out here and commit this mass murder, but I'm not going to do it because I might get the death penalty. That's not part of anyone's calculus. And I think it's absurd to think that it would be. On the other hand, what I've already said is the death penalty teaches us to shoot people to solve our problems, to kill people to solve our problems. So it's not just that it's not a deterrent, it's actually the opposite. It encourages murders. It encourages mass shootings. It encourages all of these horrific events that we think we are pushing back against or stopping.
I have one more question and I think I'll be done.
You
and I
can
don't
go
know
on
if
all afternoon.
I don't know if you spoke of this already, but what drew you to this work? Have you had any run-ins as far as the prison system, or is it something you just called to do?
Well, I always say that Jesus slapped me in the face. And what I mean by that is my faith is centered on Matthew 25. What you've done to the least of these, you've done to me. Jesus said I was in prison, and either you visited me or you didn't. And so when I think about who gets the least visits, who's ostracized the most, these folks on death row, I can't think of a more ostracized or forgotten population in our society. And so it's almost like I thought of death row as sort of being the least of the least. And so the closer you get to the least of the least, the closer you get to God. So I guess that's what I'm trying to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, we got anybody else?
Are there any final questions? All right, Jeff, I'll be sending out, Mina asks, what comes next?
Well, revolution. That's all we can do is keep fighting, keep pushing for a revolution of the heart, a revolution of the mind, so that people stop thinking that they got to kill people, and they stop poisoning their hearts and thinking they got to hate people. That's it, Mina.
I'll add to that a little bit. Thank you very much, Jeff. We'll let you all go now, and I'm going to share a couple things to folks who are online, and you can let people know. I'll be sending anybody that's registered. I'll be sending out the link to them. So we're grateful for you all being there.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, so thank you all those folks down there in Jackson. So I'm Abe Bonowitz with Death Penalty Action. I will say, what's going to come next is we're going to continue to talk about this case, Richard Jordan's case in Mississippi, as one of 6 executions that are scheduled in June. So we've got actually 2, and interestingly enough, Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood is the spiritual advisor for both of the men being executed in Alabama and Florida on June 10th. And obviously, you can only be in one place at one time. So I believe he's expecting to be in Florida at this point. But let me just share my screen here. There is, this is the, let's see here. There we are. One moment. Here we go. All right. So this is the webpage of Death Penalty Action, and it's there that you can find the petitions for the upcoming executions. And obviously, these are the ones sort of set for June 10th in Florida and Alabama. But when you click on here, you can see the full schedule of all the currently set execution dates, which we also believe to be viable execution dates. In other words, there are many states that set dates, but those are just part of the process of moving cases along. Or they're in states like Ohio, for example, where there is a de facto moratorium because the governor just keeps reprieving anybody, so because he is a consistently pro-life person and is not carrying out executions. So you have these 2 executions on June 10th in Alabama and Florida, then John Hanson in Oklahoma on the 12th, Stephen Stanko on the 13th in South Carolina, Thomas Gudinas, if I'm saying that correctly, back in Florida. Florida is kind of on a tear. Governor DeSantis has been setting executions every 2 to 3 weeks for the last month or so, and we expect that to continue. There are dozens of people who have exhausted their appeals in Florida, and then Richard Jordan. So 6 executions. Almost all of these, if not all of them, are likely to go forward. The only one that I think may be halted is possibly John Hanson, and that is if there is a success in an appeal that's been made by his attorneys based on an unconstitutional situation in his clemency hearing. But if we look at the petition for Richard Jordan, then you'll see that so far over 800 people have signed this petition, and we're going to continue to gather signatures on this, and at some point before the 24th, we'll be having a petition delivery to the governor there in Mississippi, and that will invite a number of people to be a part of delivering that petition. We already are encouraging people to call the governor's office and ask him not to go forward with this execution, and we are also going to be encouraging churches, any community actually that has bells, to go with the For Whom the Bells Toll campaign. Calls for communities of faith to toll their bells at the time of the execution, unless it's an inconvenient time, such as a midnight execution, which this one in Mississippi will not be. So we're going to be encouraging communities of faith and others who have bells to toll their bells at the time of the execution, should it go forward. I do want to back up to also say that, Richard Jordan, as Mitzi shared, Richard Jordan is a Vietnam veteran. He did 3 tours of duty in Vietnam, and about 10% of all the people on death row in this country, which is over 2,000 people, about 10% are war veterans or military veterans. Not all of them served in combat, but certainly Richard Jordan did. And the last person executed in Florida, also a combat veteran who came back severely traumatized, as Richard Jordan was, with his own experiences. And really, when somebody's a veteran, I mean, we just had Memorial Day, and I know that's about people who have died serving their country in combat. But what about the part of us that's killed when we come back from service? I'm speaking collectively and not for myself, as I wear hearing aids and I was not accepted in my offer to serve. But a part of us dies when we commit, when we carry out combat operations because of the work that what that is. It's a moral injury that you take on. And Richard Jordan took on that moral injury and came back and did not receive the service, the supports that he needed at the time, as many veterans, especially from the Vietnam experience, came back and did not get the kind of support that they needed and ended up in prison or worse. And so that's a situation also that ought to be considered when we're thinking about is the possibility of mercy, should that be really seriously considered? Because remember, clemency means mercy. And it's not about what a person did, but it's about who they are now and how they've behaved during their incarceration. And what we know is that Richard Jordan has been an exemplary prisoner. He has gotten the highest level of trust from the prison department, from the Department of Corrections, and shouldn't that be worthy of consideration? And in addition, as Jeff has pointed out, do we need to be executing a person who is 80 years old to be safe from them or to hold them accountable for their actions? I mean, think about almost 50 years in the deepest, darkest place in the country, on death row. 50 years, is that not sufficient punishment? And would it not be enough for him to simply die in prison? You know, we advocate, that, well, we share that from our perspective, if you don't get a death sentence, if you're eligible for the death penalty and you don't get a death sentence, what you're getting is actually death by incarceration instead of death by execution. So there are some people who theoretically could redeem themselves and be productive citizens again. No state really allows for that anymore these days. But so the options are death penalty by execution or death by incarceration. And we think that that's sufficient both to keep us safe from people who've done awful crimes and to hold them accountable. And also, again, when there's a death by incarceration sentence, when we're going to throw away the key, that allows victim families to begin a healing process much earlier than having to wait decades for an execution that may or may not ever happen to begin a healing process. So with that, those are the thoughts I wanted to share right now. Again, Richard Jordan is the sixth person set to be executed between June 10th and June 24th in the United States in the coming weeks. So any other questions in the chat or raise your hand, and otherwise we'll close this down. All right, well, thank you all for participating today. We'll be sending out a link to the recording, and also you can find it already on Death Penalty Action's YouTube channel and our Twitter channel. Apparently our Facebook feed failed through the system that we're using, so we'll be posting it there too. But I'll also send out a Zoom link so that those of you with visual video media can download the raw file from Zoom. So that'll just be going to the folks that have registered for this Zoom. So watch for that probably in 30 to 40 minutes. As soon as the video processes, I'll send that out. And with that, thank you all very much for participating today. Go to deathpenaltyaction.org, find out more about what's happening, what you can do, sign the petitions, make a donation, etc. And make it a great day.